Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
What does a yellow sign mean? Okay. I was like, I don't know what that sign means. Okay. I had to ask that too. All right, good morning. I would like to call to order the 170th Annual Congregational Meeting for Plymouth Congregational Church. I am Sonia Jordan, moderator. It's 10:57. All right. Okay, this is the 170th annual meeting here at Plymouth, which I think is astounding. So let us thank God. Yes, we can do a round of applause for that. So let us thank God for our ancestors who have come before us to establish this tradition for us. And I'm sorry, Rich and Scott, but 170th is better than the ones that you will get to preside over. Just sounds cooler. I would like to appoint Mark Simpson to serve as the parliamentarian for this session. Mark, do we have a quorum? We do have a quorum. All right, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed in the annual meeting. Okay. Second. Ann McElhenney. McElhenney? I don't know if I've ever said your last name before. All right, by raise of hand, all those in favor of accepting the agenda, please do so. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, I will turn it over to Valerie for our invocation.
Gladly. Let us pray together and invite God to be with us. God, we thank you for the many gifts that you have poured out among us this year, for all the ways we've grown in faith and courage and compassion and love. We thank you. We ask that you would be with us in this hour of reflection and discernment, bringing light and wisdom to all we say and do here. It is in the strength of your Spirit, in the name of your Son that we pray. Amen.
All right, on to some fun stuff. First, approval of the minutes from the last year's annual meeting on February 4th, 2024. So I would like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented and printed in the annual report. And is there a second? Kathleen or Jeff, take your pick. All right, is there any discussion of the minutes? All right, I would like to go ahead and call a vote by raising your hand. Please show if you accept the minutes from as printed in the annual report. Okay, and same sign for those who oppose. All right, motion passes. All right, another set of minutes. So if you'll recall, last year in January of 2024, we had a called congregational meeting to discuss the Enter In campaign for the sanctuary and organ project. So those minutes are also printed. So I would like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the called congregational meeting in January of 2024.
Doug Easton, I'll move.
Thank you, and thanks for saying your name. That is helpful. Is there a second? I knew it. I could have put money on it. Devin Kim. All right, is there any discussion of the minutes from the called congregational meeting? Okay, great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. All right, so as we get into the bulk of the meeting, it is appropriate to take the time right now to thank in gratitude for the people who served over the past year. This was a new year, right? This was a transition year for us as we moved into a new governance structure. And so it took a little bit of a leap of faith for people to come on board to the various committees and boards that have helped our church run. And because we are a congregational church, it is vitally important that people say yes to this opportunity so that we can have the input of our congregation in the operating procedures. So I want to take a moment to thank everyone who did say yes, everyone who came onto a board or a committee, everyone who came onto council as an at-large member, everyone who stepped into a role of leadership to serve as a chair. Again, this was a time of transition, and for some, like Christian education, for example, it was probably a lot more work than was expected. So I would like to thank all of those who have taken the time this year to serve. And I would also especially like to thank Scott for his time on the moderator team as he moves off of it this year at the end of the meeting. And would also like to thank somebody who stepped up mid-year unexpectedly to serve as our project management committee chair, which is going to be my segue after a round of applause to Terry Schmidt.
Good morning. Is Susan McCarthy in the house? You want to stand up? And she's probably thinking, why is he having me stand up? I'm not turning over the committee to her. But
Okay. Do you want some water? Okay. Here's mine right now if you need it. I'll go get you some.
That's your fault, Susan. I'm sorry. I wanted to recognize Susan because the whole point being the only way that we are working through our facilities committee is to go back and look at Susan's history that she's recorded. And you make my job look easy compared to all of the things that you have recorded that have happened in our church over hundreds of years, it feels like. So thank you, Susan, for doing that. You're probably going to get a break that my voice will give out again here in a second. But the Project Management Committee held its first meeting, organized meeting, in July of this last summer. Since that time, our group has met formally, I think, 9 times, and we've tried to meet every 2 weeks. There have been numerous meetings in between times, lots of informal gatherings, lots of one-on-one with architects and that type of thing. And if you get the newest edition of The Rock that's coming out, the article that I submitted for that simply asked the question, why is this taking so long? And I do not have a good answer of why this project is taking so long, but it's going to take a long time before we actually get to the point where this has changed. But we are blessed to have a group of 7 voting members and 4 ad hoc members who are working diligently to try and meet the goals of the Enter In campaign. We are at the stage now where we have looked at probably a minimum of 7 and possibly 9 different designs for how our chancel may look, how the front of the church may look, particularly with construction of the new organ. We are not ready to bring to the congregation a plan at this point. Disappointingly for me, I thought that we would be ready to gather the congregation sometime in early January and present a couple of ideas. We are running into some challenges as we meet with those who consider what we're doing in a historical sense and whether or not we can get historical tax credits to pay for part of this. That process is slowing down quite a bit. And I do think, though, that optimistically, if you're looking for when will we be able to bring something to you to take a look at for what our new plans may entail, that may happen in the latter part of February, maybe the 1st of March. So the answer to the question, why is it taking so long? It takes a long time to get all of our pieces put together. I do believe that whenever we bring you something, it will never be something that 100% of you are going to like. And only because of Susan McCarthy do I realize that many, many times that this sanctuary was changed, I doubt whether they ever had 100% of the people that liked what they were doing. So we are going to do our very best to bring you a plan that's workable. We're going to bring you a plan that will fit into the amount of money that we have available to spend, and hopefully carry out the mission of what the Enter-In campaign was all about. I know that the issue has come up about where are we with money, and I asked Stephen Carter to join me this morning so he can bring you up to date on where we are with the amount of money that was pledged, how is that money coming in, how are we able to function, what are the gaps that we're still working towards in order to carry out this project in a fully funded way. So we still have some challenges, but I'm going to let him do that, and then if there are any questions that you have for that, for this project, we're willing to try and answer them this morning. Stephen, will you help me out with the review?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Terry. First of all, I want to acknowledge and thank Devin Kim and the tremendous work that the Enter-In campaign did in raising over our goal of $3.2 million. The budget for the so I'll speak to the broader budget. Our initial recommendation was $4.5 million for the whole project. We exceeded the goal on the fundraising side of it, 3.2. We actually had commitments totaling $3,281,000. That alone is tremendous. But as a basic accountant, what I also take joy in is that we have already collected 40% of that amount. Thank you. Thank you all. So we have actually collected $1,277,000, which a good part of that is sitting in a bank drawing interest. On the expense side of it, we have spent $293,000. That includes $198,600 for our first payment towards the organ itself. So we've made a down payment on the organ. We've also paid all of the campaign expenses, along with other, we started paying the architect. As Terry mentioned, we're still doing a delicate dance between how we can maximize the tax credits that we previously discussed. As we get deeper into the project, we realized that that was a nice goal, $1.3 million, but with the restrictions that the state has on those specific credits, we are not budgeting for those credits at this time. We don't know what we'll ultimately get. We're also looking at other credit opportunities, grants, and the like. So the committee is aggressively pursuing funding opportunities, but the project is full speed ahead, go, and we are very pleased with where we are at this point in time. Any questions on a financial part of the Enter-In campaign? Thank you.
Are there any general questions about what the committee is doing, about our timelines coming up, or any related topic to that? And please come to a microphone because between Stephen and I, our hearing is just a little bit below average. So if you have a microphone, we appreciate it. And you may have to help me repeat the questions.
If somebody thinks
You're talking to a guy with your name.
I think I have two questions. One is, what can be done with $3.28 million in terms of the both projects if we raise no more money? That's one. Number two, the sequence. So design first, then what? When is the old organ dismantled? When the construction starts? When we move somewhere else, I guess to the Mayflower Room for services, things like the sequence of events that are going to happen.
Excellent questions. Let me try to make sure I cover all of them. First of all, if we do not have the total amount of money that we need, we simply have to go back and look to see where can we begin to change things that does fit within our budget. And I think our architects are outstanding in terms of saying we can go this far, we can't go quite that far, and until, Geraldo, we know what that first scheme looks like, I don't have a clear, accurate answer, but my suspicions are that we know that we have a finite number of dollars. At this point in time, I do not envision coming to the church and saying we need more. That doesn't mean that we won't come to the church and say we have some aspects of this that we're going to need your clarification on and that sort of thing. We intend to do that. Secondly, the timelines that are easiest to figure out on this project really start with the end. And the end is the installation of the organ in January of 2028. That's the best place to start. If you back up from that, when will we actually start construction? There were two different ideas that were projected early on in this process. One, we might be able to start construction in August of 2025, this summer. Another idea was we may not start construction until January of 2026. I can tell you right now from what I've learned in the last week or so, we're probably more inclined to be into 2026 before we start anything. The next thing is the PMC will make a recommendation to the church council coming up in another month or two, probably, whenever we know a little bit more about where will we do worship services. And I can tell you right now that the PMC is leaning, it has not voted yet, but is leaning on keeping our services here at Plymouth, possibly using the Mayflower Room. So with the number of kids that we have and the church education programs that we have, we need to try and keep our folks together as much as we can. So through the facilities committee, helping us improve things in the Mayflower Room, that's where we're leaning right now. So I'm not sure I've answered all of your questions, but those are the general ones that I think a lot of people are really worried about, is when will we get moved out of here? Where will we go? How long will it take? And the best place to start is when do they install the organ? And that's in January of 2028, and we back up from there. Thank you, Geraldo. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Terry.
I don't know which one's mine. Take both of them.
I feel like I'm not going to drink from
You
either
look-
of them, so maybe you should just take both. All right, thank you, Terry, for that update. As you can tell, this is an extremely complex project, and so I do want to thank Terry for his efforts on leading us and for all of the members of the PMC who have stepped in to try to wrangle the complexity of these details. It doesn't take very long. Thank you, Cindy. It does not take very long into one of the project management committee meetings before you realize, oh my goodness, this is very complex, and you immediately feel an immense amount of gratitude for the people who have said yes to that committee. I am happy to turn it over to Stephen Carter, who is our treasurer, to present the 2024 financial report. Stephen.
Thank you all. So I am Stephen Carter, your treasurer of your church, Plymouth Church. And at the last council meeting, Valerie made a comment. She said, well, we all know where you stand, and I would like to be sure that you all know where I stand. I want to be sure that you all understand our financial statements and that you know that we are grateful for all of your gifts that you've given us, treasury, your time, your talent, and sitting here today. So if you all would take a few moments and entertain me, turn to page 54, and while you do that, I'll share that my mother used to read to us as kids when we were little and help us go to sleep. One of my favorite books was Madeleine L'Engle's Wrinkle in Time, full of mystery, intrigue, confusion, and difficulty. Well, as you look at page 54, I'm going to try to help take away the mystery and the confusion. You'll see 4 basic columns there, MSP, and that's our general operating budget. That's what we frequently refer to. The next column is the culmination of all of our activity funds. The next one is endowment, and the 4th one is the Enter In campaign. You will notice that we have previously talked about the $3.2 million that was pledged in the Enter In campaign, and I want to point out to you that you all have been exceptionally generous to Plymouth. You'll see shortly down, like 7 lines, the first bold line talks about the contributions and collections. Uh-oh, my age. $875,000. Scoot on over to the next column, the column 6 for Enter In, $1,055,000, for a total of $1,930,000 that you have shared from your personal treasury with Plymouth. Thank you so very, very much. We appreciate it. The purpose of this statement here was initiated by Donnie Newberry-Slow and Rich Beretta during their era as treasurer and deputy treasurer. The intent is to show what really goes on in the church as a whole, everything that goes on. Each column stands alone. As I say, the first column represents Plymouth's normal budgeted activity. The next column is the activity, whether it be the youth service trips, it be the mission trips that have done, it's the music and fine arts trip to the Carnegie, it's all the various activities that flow through the church. As I mentioned, endowment, and then the Enter In campaign. There were questions about where we stand on the Enter In campaign, and I want you to be sure to know that the financial statements that you're looking at right now are published every month as part of the council report. I encourage you to go out there, look at it. If you have questions, email me. It's a complicated email, scarter@yahoo.com. It's me. Please, I challenge you to fill up my inbox with mail. If you will turn to the last page of financials, and that's on page 5959, I want you to look at that first column again, our operating budget. We ended 2024 with a surplus of $14,559. That's tremendous. With all the challenges that we had last year, we still ended up with surplus. Again, we thank you. Are there any questions about the financial statements as presented? Hearing none.
Thank you, Stephen, for your presentation. I would like to accept a motion to accept the 2024 financial report as presented by Stephen Carter. Thank you. Is there a second? Jackie. And thank you, Jackie, for saying your name. If you remember, it is helpful to say your name because Larissa is taking notes up front. Is there any discussion of the 2024 financial report? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. All right, Stephen, you are back up here.
I think that's a bad apple thing, isn't it? Keeps coming back. I'd like to ask you if you'd be so kind to turn page 50. It's a presentation of the 2025 operating budget. Compliments to all of your recommendations, insights into the efforts of the council. We are able to present a balanced budget for 2025. That arose largely because of recognition of revenue and carry forward of prior year excesses. As I mentioned in the treasurer's report, we had $14,000 of revenue excess for last year. We brought that forward. We also, as you look at page 50, if you look in the indented section, halfway down the page, you'll see transfers from revenues. You'll see carryover prior year at the far right, $14,000. We'd had a gift the prior year of $10,000 that we set aside for emergencies, and we're utilizing $8,000 of that. We have the revenues that generated from the payroll protection plan program, where we didn't need the money that was provided, and so we had excess monies there of $22,000 we're utilizing this year. We're also recognizing a $20,000 of provision for operating reserves. That's an expense we have later on in the budget, but we're putting it back in as revenue. So that's helped us. And I'll point out one other line in particular, if you go up just a little bit. Prior year pledge payments, we typically get roughly $4,000 or so of monies, people who, pledged in the prior year, but mail, whatever the case, it didn't come in time, so we recognize as revenue in the current year. Well, in January, we had $15,300 of money that literally came in during the year, so we increased that budgeted line item for what we actually received. Largely through those efforts, we were able to cover the shortfall. We did not make any reductions at all to the personnel requested budget. So all of them were made through operational expenses and revenues and preserving personnel. Are there any questions about the 2025 budget? Yes. David and Geraldo, we rely on you to ask the questions.
I am no stranger to asking questions at the annual meeting. David Bergeron, page 52. And the question is the Director of Operations and the new budget item, Business Manager. A few months ago, I asked, what does the Director of Operations do? And I was told by a very high authority in this church, you'll know who she is, that the Director of Operations is like a business manager. I went away very happy I understood that. And now I see we have not only a Director of Operations, but a new business manager, and a total salary of $75,000. Would you please explain this change?
I'll speak at a general level, and I may rely on others to speak to the detail. The Director of Operations is basically the manager over all of the operations from a personal staff standpoint. Manages Melissa Perderio, who is our accountant, who, by the way, is an exceptionally generous person, giving us flowers for today. And Longsbury, our business. Yeah, at any rate, helps everyone do everything. We are discovering that there are operational challenges in being sure all the bases are covered, and so there's been a recommendation for personnel department to do a restructuring, and on the detail levels that I can't speak to, but the general operations is that the operating manager, director, is the one who oversees the operations. Is that?
I would just add, I think that's a good overview, and Devin, feel free to, signal me no, you're way off here. But my understanding is that because we are such a complex church that continually is thriving and moving and engaging, we have a lot that is happening that runs through that office. And right now, Jaron is in a position where he is doing work at a level that prohibits him from engaging in more strategic level thinking that allows him to think about things on a broader level, things into the future, things that would assist our growing and development. And so the recommendation came from that office to consider how we can kind of further identify and define these positions so that we have people working at their appropriate level, so that a director of operations is not just like signing checks all day. Does that sound about right? Okay.
David, does that answer your question or help?
I think I heard does not clarify. Is there anything else we can add that would be helpful? Is there anything else that I can add that would be helpful? Because I think that we will, after hopefully the approval of the budget, we will be, personnel will be coming to council with a defined position description. And so we don't actually have that at this point in time, so it's tough to get into the nitty gritty. But if there's anything else I could help say, or maybe we could pull a pinch hitter in that might be able to help as well. Or if you're okay being okay, then that's okay too.
Are you hiring somebody new, or you're just redistributing duties?
The question is, are we hiring someone new? And the answer is yes, that is the intent. Yeah, I don't know if these are.
I think testing, yeah. Well, one thing, I serve on personnel as well, and I know this sounds very mysterious. A big thing that we're trying to address is that much of our staff is part-time and part-time by choice. They like the quality of life, the choices that they have. They are having to work overtime to make the things work now with all the programming that we have. And you think, well, why can't we just give them more hours? Would that be cheaper? They don't want that. And we have to respect that. And we really are very fortunate with the staff that we have right now. And we don't want to lose them by burning them out. And we are serious risk of doing that now between the Enter-In campaign and the size of our budget and how it has grown and the vibrancy of our community in terms of the growth in the Christian ed and all of those things. So we were trying to protect that, and when Jaron came up with this concept of reducing his hours to try to to make it work, it makes sense, but then we realized it'd be great if we could walk up here with specific job descriptions that had been already approved by council, but council wasn't comfortable doing that before it had the authority to do it. So it was trying to figure out which way we go first. We're not trying to hide anything, but that is the real concern that we're trying to address, and to do it in as economical way as possible, because then an operations manager and a business manager, between them, if they're doing the thing, they can do those more strategic steps that will help find the efficiencies that will make this thing work even smoother as we grow. It's just trying to help us develop as a larger church, which is a great problem to have, but it's one that needs to be addressed through our personnel. We are very lucky with the staff that we have, and we don't want to lose that.
I'm going to actually move us into the correct Robert's rules, and so I'm going to ask for a motion, and then we can return to discussion of the budget. So is there a motion? Sorry, I have to read this. Is there a motion to accept the 2025 budget as presented? I can't even hear that. Jonathan Becker. Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second? Second. Scott Morgan. Okay, so I think there is more discussion. So let's return to discussion. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Oh, on the budget? Okay, then yeah. That's fine. I'm going to let you take over unless you. I know I can.
Okay. As you all probably already know, I sport hearing aids, so I'm going to ask Geraldo.
Okay, so
if I
this
miss,
is,
I may.
yeah, thank you. This is Geraldo again. And Steve, thank you for your work. Thank you to all of you for your work. This is not exactly how I do my budget, so I think a little bit of help understanding it. The balanced budget, looks great here, but let's see here if I got this right. There was one-time contribution of $25,000. So it's like a gift that I got from a long-forgotten cousin. Then there is a one-time let's see, what else? One-time contribution gift. Let me see. One-time contribution. One time, that's the gift, the next one. And then there is money from the reserves and from PPP, both. So how much does that all add up that made possible to have this balanced budget for this year? And what does, for example, I know that we are taking funds from the reserves and that PPP is not going to go on forever. Is this the last year of PPP, I assume, or a couple of years more? So that's not going to go for a long time. The reserves is a concern because so we are now, to make a balanced budget, we have taken money from that. So my question is really, I don't do my budget this way. I do not go, I hope not have to go to my savings account and just start using money that somehow I did, more expenses than unless there is an emergency. So thank you.
Our objective at Plymouth is, as you all are aware, to be transparent. I don't just mean transparent, but totally, absolutely, 100% transparent, no secrets. So first of all, thank you, Geraldo, again for raising good questions. We are using funds that are one-time monies that will decrease over time. As you mentioned, the PPP money has roughly $50,000 left. Just a quick swag would say $25,000 a year for the next 2 years. The one-time gift referenced above of $25,000 is actually, this year it's one time, and then it decreases $5,000 a year for the next 4 years. So next year in 26, it'll be 20, 15, 10, 5. That money was donated with the express intent as seed money to help the position of a director of faith formation for the youth, to get the program really growing and strong. And in a way, it's viewed, and in all honesty, this budget's based on kind of to prime the pump mentality. We want to try to get momentum and revenue into increasing the engagement and the attendance, the participation in Plymouth. So these are intentionally recognized using short-term monies to start funding a long-term budget. The point you raised is very well recognized at council, that these monies decrease. But I will point to one other line, and that's about 7 lines down. It's called contributions no pledge. Where are we? Contributions no pledge. Contributions no pledge. You'll notice at the far right, it's $85,000. I've been in the church since 1982, and the money's one-time no pledge or nothing. But over the years, particularly recently, especially with the younger population, they don't tend to pledge. They tend to, donate at the time when they hear the message and they're pleased with what they hear. That money has been increasing steadily, not as fast as our expenses, but it has been increasing to the point where last year, you'll notice, it was $93,000 of money that was unpledged. It came in because of the emotion and the feelings, the intent of the person sitting in the congregation, such as yourselves, and on air. We are reaching folks through YouTube now that we never had access to before. So we are getting contributions in that avenue. I'm a conservative accountant. I have other aspects that are more liberal, but on accounting, I'm very conservative. Some would say very, very conservative, I think. But, and so it's hard for me to say, well, based on trends and that sort of thing. But the intent of council is to prime the pump, to use seed money this year to really help increase the momentum of the church. John?
John Lord.
Oh,
A reserve question?
oh, I'm so sorry. So we referenced the 20,000, and right with you, John. So there are two reserves really right now. There's the PPP, like I said, that's 50,000. It's going to go away in a couple of years. The operating reserve, you might recall years ago we used to have debt, and we were paying annually on the debt. And we had no reserves, none. Again, back compliments to Donnie and to Rich. What we did was once the loan was paid off, we started committing $20,000 a year to that reserve, plus excesses from any year where we had more revenue than expense. Over the years, test? Everybody awake? So over the years, that's grown to roughly $400,000. We had a BKD, an audit firm in, and they said best practices is to have at least 3 months of operating expenses in a reserve. We spend just over $100,000 a month at this church. So at this point in time, we have roughly, it's 3 months, 3/4 months, just short of 4 months worth of reserves. So we've got roughly $75,000 above the minimum. Because of that, we've decided we want to still keep the practice of putting the $20,000 away as we have talked about in years past, but also recognize we don't need to increase the reserve, so we're putting that $20,000 in as revenue, so it's a net neutral. The minimum we've established is based on the size of our budget, and again, roughly of 25%. As our budget grows, we will no longer have excess above the minimum. It's hard to predict how long that would be, a number of years, but I would expect for the next 5-6 years we could continue this practice, but then it'll stop. So with that, you can see, I think, a total on our page here of one-time monies of roughly $64,000, and then that $25,000 mentioned above, so that puts us at roughly $90,000 of one-time or decreasing revenue sources. So again, it's back to the prime the pump, get operations going, invest in the future is what we're looking at doing. John?
John Lord. So I love the idea, Stephen, around priming the pump and understanding and taking initiative going forward to try to find resources. My concern is, and I think Stephen and Geraldo and David highlighted this, we're using short-term funds to do a long-term hiring. I'm assuming the position that we're looking to fund is not a one-year position. It will be continued year after year after year. So my challenge would be to make sure that the goals that they are given, the challenges that they're asked to address, be given in a way that it's more of a short-term project that we can then evaluate their usage and the guidance that they're able to provide going forward. I just don't want in 2 years to have a discussion about how we're not hitting where our budget needs to be to support the staff that we have. I don't want to mess with people's lives that way. Thanks.
Your concerns are well noted and honestly shared. Fortunately, we're in a faith institution here, and we are looking to some degree on the faith in the future, and that the organization will continue, Plymouth will continue to grow and meet the needs of our larger community. So, point is well taken, clearly understood. Council is aware of that. It's been well shared and well discussed, but it also requires monitoring. So, Council, the Finance Committee, of which I'm chair as treasurer, will continue to monitor the budget and all that. But back to my point of earlier, it's a congregational church. It's your money. It's your church. Let us know what your thoughts are, your observations, and we are aware of, we're attentive to those. On the financial side of it, reach out to me personally. On the personnel side of it, I would say Valerie and Chair of Personnel. So, reach out at any time. And we want to know your thoughts, your concerns, and we'll be attentive to those and respond accordingly. Any other questions? All righty.
All right, thank you all for your thoughtful questions and discussion. I would just echo what Stephen said regarding the questions that were brought forward. Is this yours? No, that's mine. There were all questions and discussions that were had at council as well. So if you're thinking to yourself, wow, my question is really far off base, it definitely was not. We have a motion and a second in place. We've had the discussion. So all those in favor of approval of the 2025 budget, please raise your hand. All right, all those opposed, please sign, or please, same sign, sorry. Okay, motion passes. All right, I'm happy to turn it over to moderator-elect Rich Beretta for an update on the nominating committee and the election of officers.
Good morning. Good morning. This year's nominating ballot is printed on page 36 of the annual report. First of all, I'd like to thank the other members of the nominating committee for their efforts this year. Sonia, Scott, Sarah Whitten, and John Lord. Thank you for your contributions. I'd also like to thank Valerie for her work consulting with the nominating committee this year. You'll notice on page 36 there are asterisks next to some of the names on the ballot. The asterisks indicate those positions for which we will actually be voting on. The names that do not have asterisks are simply continuing in a multi-year appointment. There is one missing asterisk on page 36. Amanda Nagengest should have an asterisk next to her name, filling a one-year term on the Christian Ed Board. Jackie, thank you for calling that out. I'd like to highlight that the nominating committee has nominated Jenny O'Brien as moderator-elect. Jenny's been active at Plymouth as a Stephen minister, a member of the Service and Justice and Music and Fine Arts boards, and the Plymouth auction team. Jenny and Tim live on a small farm north of Lawrence, and she works as a management analyst for the city of Lawrence. Jenny, could you stand up so people hear their name? Jenny, thank you for stepping forward and agreeing to serve in this position. Sonia, I move that the nominating slate as printed on page 36 of the annual report be accepted with one additional correction. Under the Service and Justice Board, the one-year term of Beth Chambers, Beth's name should be removed and Rachel Gushin should be added. That was a error on my part. Thank you.
All right, good job with that motion. All right, is there a second?
Doug Easton, I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding the nominating committee report? All right, all those in favor of accepting, okay, Cindy, are you just jumping or did you have a question? Are you just like, let's move this meeting along? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Rich, I believe you had one additional thing.
I do have a few more comments. The nominating committee is also responsible for recommending members to serve on various boards and committees, not boards, but committees of the councils and other appointed positions. The church council approved those appointments as listed on page 35 of your annual report during its January meeting. And that's all I have on that.
All right, we are going to move into open forum. So this forum allows any church member to address the membership regarding Plymouth Congregational Church's programs, plans, and policies. This is a time to hear from members for informational purposes. So a couple of reminders: please speak into the mic so that we can hear you. I have hard hearing, as does many of our members. If you cannot get to one of the two mics up front, we have free-floating ones, so just raise your hand and we will get to you. Also, please say your name so that we can capture it appropriately for the notes, and please try to keep your comments brief. There's a dog here.
There's a dog. The dog is in the
Okay, okay.
I'm the same person who was here earlier. A curious anomaly
I'm not,
in the
is our
annual
mic,
report.
I'm sorry, David,
What's-
hold on a second. Is our mic working?
It's not working. They shut off my mic.
We might just have to do. I don't think it's working.
Test, test, test. Okay.
Okay.
So is this on? Test?
Yeah. We'll try again. I want to call your attention to page 45 and following. That is the endowment report. This is an anonymous report. That is, I have no idea who prepared this document. All the other reports indicate the author of the report. This does not. It also does not provide information that we're accustomed to getting, which is we have the statement here of the total endowment, which is $2.2 million, but we have no idea what we earned this past year, which should have been a very good year. So what was the percentage of increase in the invested funds for 2024? There is no information here. I don't know why that is the case. And this is not a written report, this is a list of things. It's a very nice list. So is there or is there not an endowment committee that put together this report?
There is not an endowment committee that put together.
So
oh,
who-
well, go ahead, Scott.
Who put the report together?
Okay, go, just get it.
Finance committee is, endowment is part of the restructuring. Finance was absorbed into this new finance committee of council. And that's why I keep looking at Stephen. But that's who is overseeing endowment. And I think Stephen's trying to figure out.
Okay.
The intent is to do, it may have been something that you've caught that was not flowed through because there wasn't a specific thing, but endowment is the one that, or finance is the one that discusses endowment. Stephen, do you need?
And it looks like Donnie also has.
Oh, Donnie may, Donnie.
Go ahead, Donnie.
Thank you, and I'm going to call on Dick also. So
We're really passing along.
this is my fault. The new fundraising and annual appeal committee actually has endowment as under it, and Dick is on the committee, and I'm going to let him talk to answer the questions. I didn't know I was supposed to do a report on this, and Dick and I kind of coordinated, and this is my fault. So I apologize. I didn't do a written report. And Melissa put together the list of the funds, and I'm going to let Dick add to that, but we'll get it, I promise.
Yeah, as part of the fundraising, endowment was sort of taken under their arm, and nothing has been done as far as naming the individual to really look after endowed funds. If you look, the balance of the endowment is in the report each year. And actually, the balance a year ago was $2,147,000. And this year it's $2 million.
Reference page 61, right at the top.
$2,252,000. So you had a gain in the balance of the endowment of 4.9%. But you have to also remember that we paid out 4% of that for 2024, which was $74,675. So the fund actually gained 8.9%. That was the return on investments, which is handled by United Church Funds. We used to do that here at the church, and I approached Peter one day and I said, if I drop dead, here's what you should do. And about 2 weeks later, United Church Funds showed up, and they provided the format for us, and they handle also charitable annuities, which can be a headache for somebody like us. So the listing of all those accounts within the endowment have been there every year, year after year, and so they're not. And if we have a new account, then that's added. And we had a new account this year, which is not included in the annual report because it hasn't been received, I don't think, by United Church Funds by the end of the year. Do you have any question that I might answer?
Yeah.
I think the comment, to repeat it for everyone, was that wanting it to be included in the annual report. And I think two things. One, I think it's maybe in the actual tables, but also this is a good reminder for us to do better next year. And go ahead, Scott. And I think Stephen might have something in addition.
Donnie, it isn't your fault on this. This is just the change. Finance is the one that has taken over the role of overseeing the investments through United Church Funds. Fundraising, annual appeal and fundraising is the one that handles the long-term giving, the annual giving, those, or not, well, the annual giving obviously, but also the long-term gifts, trying to increase the endowment. So that committee works on increasing the endowment. Finance works on overseeing and managing it. So it wasn't Donnie's fault. It was just, I think, the report kind of got lost in the change, but the numbers are there.
Stephen, go ahead.
Yes, and I'll just reiterate what Dick was saying. On page 61 at the very top, you'll see the current year balance of endowment at $2,252,000. Prior year was $2,147,000. The increase was $100,000. And as Dick pointed out, this year we received $74,000 from endowment into our operating budget, and we also, still the fund increased. And also, right on that same page, you'll see down about 25% of the way, even $100,000. That was a gift that we received in 2024 to go to endowment, and that has not been transferred. I think it transferred just in the last week or in the process now. So that means that this year's balance is actually $100,000 higher, $2.3 million.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, David, for the question. Additional questions or comments? Or concerns? Or praises?
I have a praise. Sarah, did you have something? Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm Sarah Whitten. I've been blessed with so many great things in life, but one of the things I was not blessed on was height. If I suck in my gut and stand Renrod straight, I still have to shop in the petite section. And don't get me started about maxi dresses. I feel like I'm wearing a wedding train, trying one of those on. But I mention this just because I just asked Terry and your group. I get some exposure regarding ADA guidelines on some of the projects I work on work, and I know designers are super creative and can get things done, but I'm a little worried about being able to have at least decent sight lines for lower than average height folks like me when we finally start getting going on the designs and construction of the revamp of the sanctuary here. So I just ask the groups to just keep us folks in mind who may be shorter than average or need to sit in the back because of whatever particular reason, just to be mindful of that. So
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. The question or the comment was regarding sightlines, and I will say I share your derision for maxi dresses. They don't work for me either. And so I will just say, and Terry, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but sightlines comes up at every project management committee meeting. They come up multiple times, and so we have gotten familiar with, I guess it's the geometry of how sightlines work in relation to height of a stage. And so we are trying to maximize sightlines as much as possible. It's a near constant consideration. Additional. Okay.
I have a comment, an observation. It's an expression of gratitude for Sonia Jordan, this year's moderator. Sonia, you have served us ably and with grace. We needed you, your kindness, your sharp insights, all of these have guided us so well. I'd like to invite all of you gathered here to join me in thanking Sonia for her service as moderator. And in gratitude for your service, a contribution will be made in your honor to the City of Lawrence Parks and Rec Scholarship Fund for Youth Sports.
Wonderful. That's awesome.
Thank you again, Coach Jordan. We couldn't be more grateful.
All right. I want to first and foremost thank God for this opportunity to serve Plymouth Church. And I want to thank you all for being a great congregation to work with and to serve. Thank you for making it an easy year for me, because it was really, for the most part, been a joy, and I have learned a lot. My husband's not here, he's home with my daughter, but it was really hard to do everything the moderator role requires and also have a 3, 4, 5-year-old and 2 other kids. And he's always said, just go, just do what you need to do, and I really appreciate that. And too bad he's not here to hear that. But he's home watching a sick kid. What I have in my notes, say nice things about Rich. What? And the reason I didn't have to write it out is because it's so easy to be able to do that. When I first met Rich was at council, and I thought to myself, how come he never talks? How come he just sits in there and doesn't say anything? Wiser people would recognize that that is actually a sign of wisdom, to wait, to not feel like you have to talk unless you have something thoughtful and intelligent to say. But I read it as, how come he's not talking? Because I talk all the time. Until we went to lunch together and then talked for, I think, about 2.5 hours. And I said, oh, he does talk. I have greatly appreciated our moderator team this year. Scott, every time I needed something from you, regardless of whether it was clarification on the governance structure, something I didn't understand, or just assistance with helping to moderate the way I was feeling about something, even covering meetings when I had child care challenges, you stepped up without any hesitation. I say this, I'm really gonna miss you. I know you're not going anywhere. You're not dying, but you won't be on our moderator team. I am very much looking forward to continuing to work with Rich and getting to know Jenny better as well. All right, so all of that being said, it is my absolute pleasure to turn the gavel over to our incoming 2025 moderator, Rich Beretta.
Thank you, Sonia. On behalf of the entire congregation, I'd like to thank you for your leadership this past year, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you for one more year as you serve as immediate past moderator. Scott Morgan, thank you for your 3 years of service again. This last year, I think, has shown that your dedicated work on the bylaws revision and the policy book has been worthwhile. You're leaving office with the church, leaving the church in a much better shape with these changes, so thank you. Jane and I have been members of this congregation for over 30 years. We've raised 6 kids in this church, but for the first 15 years, I was quite content to sit right over there in row 109 and be a regular member on Sunday mornings. However, serving on the fellowship board, the stewardship board, as your treasurer, and participating in small group fellowship circles and the faith formations confirmation class for adults really cemented our membership in this community. I encourage other Sunday morning members to seriously consider taking the next step in volunteering or saying yes when asked to serve on a board or a committee. I am humbled and honored to have been selected to be your moderator this year. We have a busy year ahead with work on the organ and sanctuary projects as the main task. We're in good shape overall as a church. We have growing membership. We have 24 children up front during the children's worship service as a sign of that. And we're on good financial footing. I'm excited about the year ahead. I know you won't hesitate to contact me. My email will be printed in the bulletin every Sunday, or it's also available at the church office. I look forward to hearing from you. With that, having no other business to come before the annual meeting, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Geraldo, thank you. And a second? David, thank you. David Bergeron. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. I declare the annual meeting 2024 Plymouth Church to be ended. Thank you. Oh, Valerie, would you close it with the benediction?
I will. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord, y'all. Blessings. Thank you.